It's been a few days since I had this dream and God was building this message. And so I feel a little bit separated from it, but I'm hoping He's going to do what He always does, which He's faithful to do, to bring the message out. I had this dream that I was at a wedding, but there was a garden nearby that was familiar to me. Like I felt like, oh, I went to this guy. I was at this garden last year, but the garden was a disaster. It was a mess, and it had crops popping up everywhere and randomly. Like there was a certain section where there were like carnations, and then there was an onion. So I'm telling you, the crops were everywhere. And it was like I was going on a hunt for these crops, and I had this giant basket, and I was just collecting them, and I was so excited. But I also knew that I had to like sneak them out of the garden. Like they were escaping the garden. And the wedding was kind of like this random thing that kept popping up in the dream. And for some reason, I was like trying to figure out like what alcohol I needed to buy, and it was just stressful, and it was like a distraction. But I was really excited about the crops. And I've been discerning this question about, is it time to assemble? Is it time to get the body together, these crops, these late crops? Is it time to bring them in and start assembling together? And as I was writing down this dream and taking it up with God, He started putting on me sheep without a shepherd, crops without a farmer, working the land for whom it is farmed. The harvest is white, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord to send out the workers to harvest. And so again, as I continued to write, I started to realize that this wedding and this garden is a mess. This wedding represented the world. It's been this huge nuisance and distraction, and I just was not connected to that anymore. And let me tell you, back in the days when I was worldly, I would have loved a wedding. I would have loved the drinks, and I would have loved the dancing and the partying. But even in my dream, thank God, I didn't love it. Like I didn't want it. I wanted to get those crops and get out of there. And the last thing that He put on me was the world is at rest right now, that they are at peace. And I wrote in my journal, let the horses loose. And what He was putting on me was Zechariah 1:6, that He sends those horses out to check what's going on, and they come back and report to Him that the world is at rest and at peace. And He's saying to God, how long are you going to, are you going to withhold justice or mercy from Jerusalem these 70 years? Referencing, of course, the prophecy that Jeremiah spoke, and obviously not yet with the understanding that Daniel had in Daniel 9, where Gabriel gives understanding to Daniel that there are actually, the 70 years are actually 70 weeks. And between the 69th week and the 70th week, the anointed one is put to death. The Antichrist comes in and destroys the sanctuary. And then at the very end, God extends this covenant for 1 week with many. That's the time we're living in right now. Now, Zechariah 1 talks about the suffering of Jerusalem during this 70 years, which we are to understand from Daniel 9, includes the time that we're living in. So how long are you going to withhold mercy from Jerusalem, from those who are grieving and lamenting the detestable things that are being done in Jerusalem, as is written in Ezekiel? God sends those horses, those spirits throughout the earth, and they come back and report to Him, everyone's at rest. They're at peace. No big deal. No big deal. Nothing to see here. We're in captivity. Do you realize that you were born into bondage? You didn't even realize it. That's a pretty insidious type of bondage and deception, to not even know that you're in bondage. To not even know that the very things that you were taught were Christian are actually anti-Christ. Where did you get Saturday and Sunday? Where did you get the image of the cross? Where did you get Christmas and Easter? You got them from the Antichrist. And you guys will say that the Harlot Catholic Church is evil. You'll say that. You'll point to her and say, that's the Antichrist. Do you realize you got all those things from her? The cross from Constantine the Fake, who had a supposed vision that Jesus told him, set up this image. Oh, right. Okay. Christ told you, set up an image and you will conquer by that image. And yet that's the image of what people are calling Christianity. Saturday, the book of Daniel says that the Antichrist is going to attempt to change God's appointed times, which would include his Sabbaths and his holy days. Where'd you get Saturday and Sunday from? Do you realize that those are constructions of the Romans and Greeks? Do you realize that the Gregorian calendar that you've been observing is a construction of the Romans and Greeks? That is not God's calendar. That God has a lunar calendar. That's why he had us celebrating new moon. That his days are numbered, not named. And then in order for you to even be observing correctly, you would need to know that. You would need to be observing that. Because he doesn't have a relentless set of weeks, as is on the Gregorian calendar. He has a month in which the first day is a rest day. Then you count down 6 work days and a rest day. And you do that 4 times in a lunar month. And then at the end of the month, you either have a 29-day month or a 30-day month. If you have a 30-day, then that would be a work day. And you start right back over to a rest day. So there are 1 to 2 days in between those weeks. What's Saturday? What is Sunday? We have been living during a time of captivity, of deception, of bondage. And God is waking us up, and he is exposing, and he is confirming a covenant with many. But there is also a judgment that is going to happen. And in chapter 6 of Zechariah, he talks about that judgment. He talks about those horses going out and executing judgment, and then they have appeased his wrath. Revelation 6 talks about those horsemen right at the time that the Antichrist is seen. The Antichrist who has a crown, and one crown. Jesus has many crowns. That's different. And he goes out on this white horse as a rider bent on conquest. That isn't the Spirit of God. That's the Antichrist. Right now is a time of exposure. It is a time of woe, of wrath. It is a time in which God's people need to come together. Those crops need to come together. They need to come out of that disheveled garden from all the places they've been hiding in, scattered throughout that garden. And while you need to understand that you are going to suffer during the Antichrist reign, you also need to come together with the rest of God's people, with his body. And I'm not talking about in a church, because a church is not the church. The church are those who are assembling in the Spirit. You don't need a building for that. And you know what? If you're not making a business of God, a marketplace, you're not going to be in a building. And in fact, Jesus told the woman at the well, you're not going to be in Jerusalem or on that mountain. You're not going to be in a synagogue. You're not going to be in a cathedral. You're not going to be in a mega church or any such thing. Where did the early Christians meet, guys? They were hiding. They were hiding. And that is what you will be doing as well. You need to clean yourself up to enter into Passover, whether it's the first or the second. If you get into the second, you got in by the skin of your teeth, you better do the work that you need to do to clean yourself up, and to clean yourself up to be able to enter into his assembly as well. Because you don't get to willy-nilly just walk in the door, hide out in a corner, and not contribute. That's not the way that God said to assemble. In 1 Corinthians 14, Paul said that each of you, brothers and sisters, needs to bring something to the assembly to build up the church. What do you think you're doing? You're supposed to be building his house. It says that you need to keep your hands strong and you need to get in there. Just as is written in Haggai, that you need to get working on his house. You're supposed to be living stones, holding this house up, concerned about the structural integrity and doing your part to hold it up. And if you're not, you'll be removed. I want you guys to take this message and I want you to go pray about it and discern it with God. There are requirements in order for you to be in his house. There are requirements for overseers that they do not allow any foreigner uncircumcised in heart into his sanctuary. So, as much as I want all of you guys to make it, I'm not going to lie about where you're at. You need to go and return to God through fasting. And you need to understand what we do when we assemble. That this is about worship for God. It's not about us hearing you're weak. It's about what you're bringing by God's Spirit after having returned to him. What is he building in you? What is he speaking to you about that you should be speaking with us in order to build up the church? Not to vent, not to dump, but to share with the body of Christ in order to build the body, build the temple, build the house. If that's where your heart is at, then we'd love to have you assemble with us. But I want to make it very clear, that is what is expected. Nothing less will be accepted. Please discern it with God.